The Australian very often reproduces articles from this sector. And some of these, you'll know this one, these are, I've got these as, some of these as links on the Moodle as alternate media. Newspapers there, even law, there are right and left in, obviously in law. That's general social comment. Economics, probably need to fill that out because there are some more right-wingers there. Politics, of course, is a huge list, and I haven't put every single politician, that would be crazy. I'm just putting more ones who have had a lot of influence on ideas.
John, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Like, with the right wing, is it like extreme right wing here, or just like leaning towards?
There's a mix, you know.
Because you said
some are very right wing, some are less so. Yeah, I mean Kevin Donnelly's pretty far right wing, and George Pell is, whereas,
like for example, Julia Gillard, is she like extreme?
Yeah, no. See, Julia Gillard would be less so.
Like the Labour Party, isn't it like it is on the right wing?
Yeah, it is.
But not really.
No, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Look. I'd have to say two things about the list. One, it's obviously incomplete. I'm just putting up, you know, some of the main ones. And secondly, we don't actually have I've only got it in 3 categories.
Okay.
And so, same on the left, you could say some of those people are much more left than some of the others in that category. Sure.
Because I saw like Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd on the centre and
that's right.
Right wing.
That's sort of suggesting they're kind of centre right.
I thought Rob Whitlam is right wing, because I remember
Yeah, that's true. In relation to the actual policies that he eventually affected Australia with, most are on the left. Yeah, so he's on the right in terms of within the party, but social effect more on the left. Peter Singer's on our list as a philosopher, animal liberation and so on. This guy's an interesting guy. He was Australian intelligence officer, and then he resigned because of Australia's behaviour in the Second Iraq War, and before Australia actually declared war, he said basically Australia's lying to its public and I can't be part of this. And then he stood for the Greens, and now he's an independent in Tasmania, making some sort of very interesting speech just last week. He listed 10 points why Australia is becoming a police state, and that's from somebody who was in the security forces. So, you know, he's quite an interesting voice.
Just a question about him. When you were talking about the Iraq War, just wondering, did Australia go to the Iraq War because of America or for other reasons?
Primarily because America went, and we are so interlinked with America. Sure. Yeah.
Right.
It produced. Certainly, the public did not want that war. The biggest demonstrations ever in Australian history occurred trying to stop the war. There were 100,000 people in the streets of little old Adelaide. Just extraordinary. I remember the day. People just got totally lost in the crowd. And around the country, close to 1 million people were on the street to try to stop the war. But, you know, the leaders ignored it because basically of the directive by the US. So, yeah.
Yeah, John, I have another question. Do you think the world is being influenced by the American culture, or?
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because a lot of the stuff they have, for example,
Oh, everywhere. It's. I'll give you 2 useful vocabulary words. Adjective from this, pervade. Pervade means spread. Like, you know, if you had a bad smell in a bottle, you released it, it pervades the room. So pervasive. Ubiquitous, something that is everywhere. ubiquit means like location in Latin. So in every location, ubiquitous. So sure, American culture is pervasive and ubiquitous. It's part of the empire, isn't it? Most empires have political, economic and cultural dominance, influence, and including linguistic. So sure, it's part of that package of dominance, I guess. Facebook, I've talked about the virtues of Facebook. You can use Facebook to say, I'm going to get myself another beer, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But you can also use it for, you know, information, news, critical thinking, etc. Those certainly are some of the people around the place. I should update that list. Chris White, I would add Chris White. He used to be head of the trade union movement here. He's a researcher now in Melbourne. And he produces a lot of very interesting stuff on Indonesia. He lived in Darwin for a long time, had links with Indonesia, and also China. He's quite a China watcher. You get some good material from him on that. So that's just a list. It's incomplete. It's what we call a work in progress. I keep adding to it as names come up, like that. That may be of some use to you. Okay, well, I'll just put a couple more up and then you can jump in and have a look at the ones that interest you. This is a very useful guide, I find. We are looking at a bit of science with the paediatrics. And basically when you're criticising that bit of research, you've got to obviously do it from a kind of scientific point of view. Well, what is the scientific point of view? Many of you have studied science to a high level, postgraduate level in many cases. You either, often science courses teach a lot of this stuff implicitly and you get it as you go. The point about a critical thinking approach to science is it mentions these things explicitly and teaches the explicit principles. And also, even if you know the explicit principles, this site may be helpful for you in terms of giving you the English for concepts that you already know. So, for example, basically, you know, going through the scientific method there. But things like, for example, forming hypotheses and creating what they call the null hypothesis. This may be new to you, don't know, but the notion that science works through not proving something, but falsifying. That's how science progresses. You can falsify something, but you can never actually prove something. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to set up a null hypothesis, and you have to falsify it. That's actually how science progresses, or is meant to progress. So that's kind of important to understand when you're criticising a bit of science. Like if you don't realise that it's working through that method, then your criticism, your actual thinking is going to be a bit problematic. And it does go through a little bit of statistics, you know, it doesn't go into statistics, but it mentions why we use statistics. And ultimately, you know, just the probability, statistics is clearly a probabilistic thing, and there's always an element of uncertainty about it. Okay, that'll take you through the null hypothesis. Oh, sorry. I meant to show you other stuff there. I reckon if you're heading towards a science-based graduate or postgraduate degree, this would be a really good little site to work your way through. So, you know, methodology, observations, testing a hypothesis, writing your conclusions, etc. If you go into some of these, like I'll just try to find one. Okay, this sort of thing. When you have a hypothesis, you have to operationalise it. Now this may be new, either as a concept, or you may know the concept but not know the English. So let's have a look at this. This is quite important in if you're going to measure something, you're going to collect data and you're going to analyze data, then operationalizing something means basically you have to define it. So if we have this question, children grow more quickly if they eat vegetables. All right, interesting hypothesis. But what does children mean? We have to operationalize that. So, from what part of the world? What age are they? What gender? We've got to define that quite specifically. We've got to say, children from the age of, say, when do they start to eat solids? 1 year to 18 or whatever. And you've got to collect from that sample only. How is growth defined? Is it weight, height, mental growth, strength? What variables are you going to test? They may produce quite different results. So we've talked about dependent variables. Ultimately, you have to make it measurable. That's the key. So you have to define them quite specifically. What's the term quickly mean? What units? What time scale? Are we going to measure it over years or months or whatever? Frequency of sampling. Do we sample every 5 minutes, every month, every year? What are vegetables? What's the definition? There's actually is it a fruit? Is it a vegetable? There's this sort of debate. You see the point? That's operationalisation, and it discusses more details around those principles of operationalisation. But just one example of you can get. Obviously, it looks like you can get the PDF there. That is that website. I would work your way through that. So you've just got all those basic concepts and the language linked with the concepts in place. If you are heading towards any kind of scientific thing. Now, when I say scientific, I mean if you're studying teaching or even nursing is clearly more scientific. You'd use those ideas a lot in your criticism and reviews within nursing. But even teaching, as a teacher trainee, you're going to have to read articles on, well, okay, do kids who read more than an hour a week have higher writing scores than kids who don't? All of that comes from research and measurable outcomes and so on, doesn't it? So again, even if you're into a less obviously scientific area, you're probably still going to need these concepts. There's a little bit more there I've put up on the null hypothesis because it's linked with that as kind of tricky concept that you've got to get your head around. Let's just stop there for now. There's quite a bit there in critical thinking. It will take bloody ages to get through all that, so I'm not going to do it all at once. Switching back, jump in there, have a look at anything that is useful, the IB, theory of knowledge stuff, or the fallacies, or that scientific method material, and just have a bit of an exploration for the next few minutes, and we'll move on in a minute.